chaos. Hey guys, Primal Chaos here. Welcome to the channel. Now, I did an Angelina Jordan video. I put a spell on you. For me, it was a while back, but it scheduled came out pretty recently. And look, it was pretty fascinating. I got to admit, I went in fairly skeptical because a lot of times, you know, as I mentioned in the video, with child talent, a lot of times, you know, it's more of mimicry and things like that. It's very rare that you find sort of like a gem, somebody who gets it at a young age rather than can just, you know, ape what they're seeing with someone who they consider to be an influence or whatever, right? And so Angelina definitely sort of stands apart from the crowd as far as like being fearless and nuanced and brilliant. I mean, from what I've seen, obviously I've only had one real experience, but I thought, you know, I really need to jump back in and find out exactly what's going on here. And I figured the best way to do that was maybe check out the thing that sort of brought her onto the scene, which is apparently the audition on Norway's Got Talent. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm just going to check that out, find out sort of, you know, what about her captured the imagination of people enough that she sort of became a bit of a phenom, a bit of a known quantity, so to speak. So yeah, I'm going to check that out right now. Let's take a look.
Første auditiondag går mot slutten, og for de yngre deltakerne kan vente til å bli lang. Heldigvis for Angelina både mamma, familie og venner med som støtte.
She looks so bored.
Jeg heter Angelina Jordan, jeg 7 år, jeg kommer fra Oslo. Jeg skal synge en sang som heter Gloomy fra Billie Holiday. Jeg har en kjempestor gjeng.
It's crazy how the format for this show is the same all over the world, like to the letter.
Jeg elsker å synge, og når jeg blir stor, så vil jeg være en superstjerne.
You will be, mate. You will be.
Hvis dommerne sier ja, så blir jeg veldig glad. Da blir jeg sånn...
Hei, Andreas heter jeg, jobber med lyd. Skal du få den mikrofonen der? Du har synget mikrofon før, ikke sant? Kjempebra, da vet du hva du skal gjøre.
Have you ever used a microphone before?
Ja. Ok.
That's crazy.
Gi dem jazz.
All right, here we go.
Hei sann.
Hei,
Hei, velkommen hit.
takk.
Hva heter du?
Jeg heter Angelina Jordan.
Hvor gammel er du da?
Jeg er 7 år.
7 år, og hva er det du skal gjøre for oss her i dag?
Jeg skal synge for dere.
Hvilken sang da?
Gloomy fra Billie Holiday.
Ok. Da gleder vi oss, Angelina. Da kan du bare sette i gang når du er klar. Scenen er din.
Not where the black gold of sorrow has taken you. Angels I know by, I'm never returning you. Would make me angry if I fall at joining you.
It sounds like it's coming out of an old-timey microphone. It's wild. That sort of nasal thing too. It's interesting. doesn't make sense, eh?
heart is telling you how much I wanted you. Gloomy Sunday.
Wow.
Gud a meg, altså.
Angelina,
Ja.
jeg tror at du er en gammel sjel som har levd mange liv. Du synger helt fantastisk. Jeg fikk gåsehud helt fra starten av. Jeg har ikke egentlig mistet litt tom for ord her, egentlig.
Yeah, I'd be the same.
Det var helt fantastisk å sitte og høre på deg. Dette var virkelig, altså. Du er jo musikk.
Takk.
Ja.
Vet du hva jeg tenker om deg? Jeg tenker at du er født til å synge. Og jeg vil si at foran oss her, folkens, så har vi ei stjerne.
Noen ganger når man er voksen, når man ser et barn som synger, så forstår man ikke helt hvordan det går an. Fordi at du synger på en sånn måte som man tror at man blir nødt for å være voksen, og kanskje til og med ganske voksen, for å gjøre. Vet du hva sangen handler om?
Ja. Det handler om en trist søndag.
Det gjør det. Jeg kjente den triste søndagen. Det var fantastisk å høre på deg. Virkelig fint.
Da stemmer vi, folkens. Ja! Angelina, du er videre i Norske Talenter.
Tusen takk.
Tusen takk.
Wow.
Du synger helt vidunderlig vakkert.
Tusen takk.
Hvor har du det fra? Om å bli blown away.
Det er det beste jeg har sett.
Hørte du med raspen? Det høres ut som jenta har drukket whisky siden hun kom.
She sounds like she's been drinking whiskey since she was born. That's the impression I had. I said you can almost smell the whiskey, you know? It's crazy.
Ting der kan ikke bli lært. Det er sånne ting som du er født med, og hun hadde det bare.
Hun likte jazz. Det er ingen andre barn som liker jazz. Men hun liker jazz, og hun synger jazz som en gud.
En sang om en trist søndag, men dette er en glad dag.
Very cool.
Takk, publikum. Nå kommer det
You
fantastiske.
can go ahead. Yeah.
Virkelig, altså.
Wow, okay. Yeah. Hang around after the ad break. I got to give you my thoughts on this one. I got a lot to talk about. Hey guys, this video is made possible by Enchroma. 1 in 6 guys and 1 in 200 women are colorblind. And if that happens to be you, there's something you can do about it. Click the link in the description. It'll take you to Enchroma's website where you can get a free eye test. And while you're there, maybe pick up some corrective lenses. They've got styles to suit everybody and a 60-day money-back guarantee. So you got really nothing to lose. And while you're there, use the code CHAOS in checkout to get 10% off. Tell them Primal Chaos sent you. Man, so... Whew. It's such a tricky thing to comprehend because your eyes are seeing what you're seeing, and you know kids, you know what they're like, and you know sort of typically how their abilities and how the way that they perceive the world works, right? And then you're hearing what's coming out of her mouth and it doesn't connect, it doesn't add up, you know. And I think that's sort of like what's challenging about Angelina for most people, that sort of tips them over into just being fascinated, right? Because it just doesn't connect, it doesn't add up. Especially with something like this. I'm sure, like, I'm going to react to more of her stuff when she's older. And I think what's going to happen is there's going to be this transition point where it goes from, I don't understand how this is possible for someone so young, to when she starts to perform at a level which is more age appropriate, right? When she becomes like 15 or 16, there's plenty of 15 or 16-year-olds out there who can sing great, right? But I think it's more of a case then of like, the advantage that she's going to have in being amazing so young is that she takes forward all of that experience and has this ability to probably evolve into like an even more nuanced and fearless performer at a younger age than most people would be, even as an adult. You know what I mean? And so she's light years ahead in that regard. So I'm really curious now to check out what she's currently doing and seeing how having this experience so young affects her as someone who's like at a more age appropriate level to be an amazing singer, if that makes sense. But you know, it's funny. Well, the thing that's crazy about it is it's like almost like she's a, and I mean this in the most respectful way, as in I understand, like in the comments everybody tells me how she's you know, she arranges all of her own stuff and she feels and she understands what she's saying. And you know, while I 100% agree with all that, what I'm about to say is that in this particular performance, it almost sounds like she's a human tape recorder playing back a performance, because you're hearing all of this, like as the judge said, all this rasp in her voice and this nuance and those little inflections, like the kind of nasally kind of things. Part of it actually reminded me a little bit of Björk when she sings It's Oh So Quiet. It's a similar sort of jazzy, standardy sort of thing, and she does a little bit of that, like it's like a nasal sort of growl, you know. You know, she's doing all of this, but then when you look at the artifice, like the outside shell of who she is, she's kind of twitchy and kid-like, and she's like, you know, her in this performance, because she's so young, maybe her technique isn't all that great, you know, and I mean, she's singing around a whole bunch of like missing teeth and stuff like that as well. That's got to affect how you sing, trust me, believe me. You know, the whole thing, but you're seeing everything sort of like the performance is very immature and very childlike, but then what she's producing through that sort of, if you imagine she's a speaker box, and she's this little child-shaped speaker box that's like, you know, it's kind of still not quite complete being put together and things like that, but the sound that's coming out of it is this weird old-timey, perfectly nuanced, you know, jazz 1920s 30s sort of performance, right? And that's where it's just mind-blowing. It's like somebody pressed play and she's a speaker and she's reproducing the sound, you know, but through her own lens. She's putting her own spin on it and her own feel and her own flavor based on the influences that she's had in her young life of listening to whoever, you know. It's just like this equation that just doesn't seem to quantify. It doesn't connect at the end. It's just like all of these parts that just keep moving forward, and you just have to accept the fact that it doesn't make sense, you know. It's beguiling. It really is. It's really unusual. I mean, you can tell the judges were unanimous on this one. It's not something that you get to see all that often. Like something like this comes around every once in a decade if you're lucky. You know what I mean? It just it's hard to put it into words because it's so unusual. Normally, when you're trying to explain something, you'll use examples. Like it's kind of like when this happens, and it's kind of like when that happens, but there's really nothing to compare it to. You can't be like, oh, you know, she's a lot like X or Y child singer, you know, because I think the other thing that makes it more complex too is like, if you go to any sort of child talent show or something like that, like my partner used to do what's called talent quests, which are like cabaret style club singing competitions. And so, you know, you'd go and there would be like 5 or 6 people on the bill that day, and you know, whoever would win that heat would move on to another heat, and there's usually really big prizes and stuff like that. I've seen places give away cars and things to winners and all that. But so occasionally you'll see like child performers and things like that, and a lot of times you'll come across somebody who's like, they'll be obsessed with like, you know, this was back in like the, you know, late 90s 2000s, but you know, they'd be obsessed with Mariah Carey. And so they could sing exactly like Mariah Carey, note for note, pitch perfect, you know, depending on their skill level, obviously. But, or they'll, you know, Whitney Houston was another one. You'd always hear these little Whitney or Mariah clones that would come through. And I think that what makes this complicated is it's such an unusual influence for a child. Like typically they'll be like listening to what, is on the top 40 or something like that, and they'll be like, I can do that, I want to do that too. And they'll focus all of their attention on being able to sing. Their parents might get them a karaoke machine so they can sing along to things and things like that. But in her case, it's so unusual to be influenced by someone like, you know, Billie Holiday or you know, someone from that sort of genre. You know, like I would be more inclined to think that someone her age might be influenced by like a Amy Winehouse kind of person. You know what I mean? Like if she came on there and gave an Amy Winehouse, because Amy Winehouse has a similar sort of influences, right? She's got kind of like a swingy sort of jazzy kind of smoky nightclub kind of vibe, right? If she came on and was a little Amy Winehouse clone, that I could make sense of, that I could quantify. But she's going back to the source. And even to the point where, like, as I mentioned during the performance, she'd be like singing and you can hear like the hiss of like the, you know, the old timey microphones, you know, like when you hear like people singing, oh, I'm singing, you know, and it sounds like a war era sort of, you know, 1940s kind of microphone performance, you know, like, and you can hear that sort of like, it sounds almost like it's coming off a vinyl record.
Now was I slumberless, dear is the
Can you hear it? You can hear the air of the room and everything. She's just like, you know, and I mean, there's things you can do as a singer. You can sing, you know, with straight technique and produce a straight sound, or you can sort of put a little bit more into it and you can sort of somehow, in a way, kind of give this inflection like there's more reverb than there is. Or, you know, you can sort of like, you can play around with it and you can really lean into notes in a certain way that makes it sound more lush, or, you know, you can sort of instill a little bit of vibe into it. And she's doing that. And it just it doesn't make sense. It sounds like they've gotten her settings and EQ'd it to sound like an old microphone, but I know that they haven't, you know. It's just, it doesn't make sense. I don't know what to do. All I know is I'm going to be doing more videos of hers because I've really got to get to the bottom of this mess, man. My head, it can't make sense of it, you know. But anyway, look, that's about all I can say about it, other than I'm just fascinated. I really am. Thank you so much for, you guys blew up the first video. And you know what? I may not have sort of stepped further into this journey if that hadn't happened. So it really comes down to you guys, you know, sort of getting in. Like, I can see the groundswell of support for Angelina, and it's always fascinating when I come across an artist that has this diehard inbuilt fan base. I always wonder why, and so I like to get to the bottom of that as well. I'm a problem solver. Like, I see a problem, I'm like, I got to figure out what makes that tick, you know. But yeah, if it wasn't for you guys jumping on that first video, I may not have sort of gone back and revisited it, which is really cool. And, you know, I appreciate you guys. This channel basically goes where the audience takes it, and in this case, we're going this way. So thanks again, guys. Look, if you feel like I've brightened your day at all, feel free to support the channel. Just buy me a coffee. I'll leave a link in the description to a PayPal account. And yeah, no, like, share, follow, subscribe. If you know anyone who might want to check out this reaction, send it to them. That'd be fantastic. And always comment too. I'd love to hear you guys. You guys have given me heaps of information about her backstory and stuff, but maybe give me some ideas on where I should go next to check out something a little bit different from her. That'd be great. But yeah, thanks again, guys. I'll catch you on the next one.